Moisés, ¿qué estás estudiando?
El examen de matemáticas en la escuela.
Es tu primer examen en Estados Unidos, ¿eh?
Ángela, dale otro huevo al niño. Él necesita comer
Está bien.
para que tenga mucha energía.
Vamos. ¿Quieres una tortilla?
Sí.
Y es por amor que no voy a dejar que nos corten las alas. Si es el amor, la razón, el motor que la
We have testing all week this week and next week. The tests are going to be hard, but that's all right because we're going to try really hard. Isn't that right, Cameron? Yes, Miss Keith. Okay, great. Everyone listen up. So we're going to work all week at ours from the answer and the information in the story, okay? We're going to go ahead and test, factual test, and try this actus test. Test your ups. We're going to read. You go to B. First on page 3.
¿Qué dijo? ¿A poco va a empezar el examen?
No, es una práctica.
We're going to take notes from the story and we're going to turn it into a math problem and we're going to walk through it together, okay? So the boy ran 3 blocks. So everyone write 3 blocks. How long did it take him to run 3 blocks? Michelle? Very good, 6 minutes. All right, so then we take 3 blocks and 6 minutes,
¿Por qué el
right?
niño corre con los bloques?
¿Qué?
Sí, ¿por qué el niño corre con los bloques?
No,
Okay, so
corre
the
3
question
calles.
is go on to ask us, how long will it take him to run 20 blocks? What do we do? How many minutes is that per block?
8 minutes.
Try and remember to raise your hand if you want to answer, okay? No, it's not 8 minutes. Michelle.
15 minutes?
Nope, not 18 minutes. Yes, Enrique?
40?
40, yeah, very good. How'd you get 40?
I don't know.
You don't know? Well, 40 is the right answer. How did you get it?
I forgot.
You forgot. Okay. Does anyone know how we get 40? Yes, Moises. Yep, that's right. Very good. Great. Can you tell us how you got that?
40?
Yep, very good. But can you explain to the class what you did here, how you got that?
40?
Okay, all right, you guys, settle down. Joe, do you want to lose your recess?
No.
Okay, then. Thank you, Moises.
Can you repeat me, please?
Can you take a walk with me? I don't want you to worry about the test, okay, Moises?
Sí, estoy preocupado sobre el examen. La directora Rosa dijo que todavía tenemos que hacer.
Just try your best, okay? Do you understand? Not importante.
Sí, sí es importante.
You're right, Moises, it is important.
I have to go. I'm sorry.
Voy a agradecer, disculpe que está todo un poco apretado
When
aquí.
was the test?
Ayer, tal vez en el suelo.
It used to be in Spanish, right?
Yes, they used to be. Muy bien, perfectamente. Ahí está bien, gracias.
Can we translate it? Just the math part. I have this one student who he says, and he would totally ace it.
Come on, we can't. We're not supposed to talk to the kids in Spanish, technically. It's unlike Moises. He's a good kid, but we need to focus on the kids that are... Gracias, señor. Michelle. She's very...
Close to being proficient.
Right. It's 5% proficiency this year. If we don't do any better this year, I don't know what's going to happen. So just please make sure that Michelle follows the directions. Okay? I have to. Sorry, excuse me.
No necesito que la pase.
Creo que dijeron que no se valía tocar la base hoy.
¿Qué onda, carnal? ¿Eso es todo? ¿Sí? Órale.
Luis, son chachos.
Tranquilo, sí.
Lo quiero matar.
Mira, carnal. Ese güey es un tonto. Debería estar estudiando como tú. Te aseguro que a la hora del examen no sabe ni siquiera la mitad de la matemática que tú sabes. ¿Ok? Te veo.
No lo voy a hacer.
¿Qué cosa?
El examen.
Lo tenemos que hacer.
Me voy al parque, me voy a comprar un helado.
¿Cómo lo vas a hacer?
Me meto al baño y cuando nadie está ahí, me voy. El señor Rosa dijo que no deberíamos tomar el examen.
¿Quién es?
Pues que no habla inglés, como tú y yo.
¿Cuándo dijo eso?
Como está hablando por teléfono con alguien.
En realidad no está hablando contigo.
Sí, pero escuché. Oye, tú no deberías hacer el examen. Yo tengo suficiente dinero para 2 helados.
Bien.
Find what you're looking for?
No. I'm trying to find a test in Spanish for one of my kids. I know we used to have them. I thought they'd be down here with the old bilingual stuff. ¡Moisés! ¡Estoy atorada! ¡Ayúdame!
¿Estás bien? Sí. Es divertido. Solo como si se ladrones.
Vamos.
Vamos a la costa.
Lo siento, yo no voy a ir. Necesito hacer el examen. ¿Por qué se lo vas a fallar? Yo no sé.
Moisés, ¿qué hacemos ahora?
I'm sorry, Moises. I have to take this from you, okay? But if you have any questions, you can ask me, okay?
Miss Peterson?
Okay, so I like that video because it gives you a good idea of kind of what Moises is going through. It's an older video. It's from the 90s in California when it was illegal to use a student's first language. Now that's no longer the case, so you don't need to worry about that. But I also like it because it explains or gives an idea of the baggage that some of the students bring to school, like crossing the border and getting here, which can often be a traumatic situation for them. So my name is Michelle Jensen. I am an ESL teacher at the middle school. I'm the lead ESL teacher for the district. And here are some of the rest of us. So Leah Sedler is at the high school and her contact information here. You will have access to this PowerPoint as well, so you can, write this all down unless you want to take a screenshot right now. But Jenny Campos was a para last year, but she's working on her licensure, and she will be ready and at the high school as well with Leah come November. This is me again, and Lisa is also at the middle school, Lisa Quinlan and Michelle Jensen. And then at the various elementary schools, there's just one teacher at Salem Hills, Sophie Johnson, 2 teachers at Hilltops, Tina Holum and Hannah Ubel, and 2 teachers at Pine Bend, Trisha McCabe and Heath Anderson. And then our interpreter and family liaison is Abby Lisinski. She works at all schools all 5 days, so I think she's at the middle school on Thursdays, etc. And this is her cell phone number, her school cell phone number, so feel free to contact her that way. And then we also have Language Line, especially for non-English families. Used for simple school home communication such as attendance, lunch clubs, whatever. Honestly, you can use Language Line. It's over the phone, and it creates a 3-way phone call between the school staff, non-English speakers, and an interpreter. And before you call Language Line, you want to determine the primary language spoken. So find out what language is spoken at home, the person you want to talk with, and then tell them that you will call back with an interpreter if they happen to get hold of you. So Language Line access, here's the number, and again, you'll have this PowerPoint to go back to. So you dial the number and you enter your 6-digit code, which will be on the following document. Enter your 6-digit code. I'm sorry. Let me start over. So dial the 1-800 number. First enter this code, okay? And that's our whole school code. And then you'll press 1 for Spanish and 2 for any other languages. Say Inver Grove Heights School. Then enter your school code, which is this code, okay? So first your district code, select your language, say Inver Grove Heights Schools, and then enter your school code. It's pretty easy. It's pretty self-explanatory here. And then tell the interpreter what you are wanting to communicate, and then give them the phone number you wish to use. And be concise with the interpreter, what's really important that the interpreter conveys. Oftentimes you won't get a hold of the family at the time, so the interpreter will ask if you want to leave a message or not. So the different numbers or codes for the different schools. Okay, so our trends in the district, out of about 3,600 students, about 20% have another language spoken at home, and there are about 41 different languages in the district. 10.2% are English learners, which is quite up from 6% in 2011. 80% of these students, of this 10%, 80% of them speak Spanish in their homes. I think that actually might be 80% of the 20%. But then the next largest groups are Arabic, Hmong, Somali, and Vietnamese, and I have students at the middle school with all of those first languages. Here are some others: Amharic, Mandarin, English Creole, Filipino, Gribo, Russian, Swahili, Tagalog, Telugu, Urdu, Yoruba, Liberian English. And I put an asterisk next to English Creole and Liberian English because we don't really often think of the fact that they do speak English, but they might still struggle. So we do screen them. Sometimes they slip through, and if they're doing just fine, we don't screen them. But if we notice that they're struggling, then we'll screen them, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. I also put this poster in the background. You can copy it for your own. I just like it. If you take the time to read it, you'll find it very interesting. So why should you care? Because such a small population of your classroom is EL. I just like to say that all students are academic language learners, and that's what this all stands for. So all students are academic language learners. So everything you do for English language learners helps all students because they're all academic language learners. So if you think of your content, your standards, your content standards are the what, but your language objectives and figuring out the language students need to communicate your content standards are the how. So the language, English, is the mode of communicating your content standards. Therefore, it's an important thing for all students to get that academic language. Common acronyms you might hear as we talk, and we try not to use acronyms too much, but just if you're wondering what they mean, a lot of people wonder what the difference between EL and ESL is. EL is the learner, the actual learner, so it's the student that is learning English. ESL is the instruction, so it stands for English as a second language or a third language. L1 and L2 is your first language, your second language. Your second language, in our case, usually English. And then I'm going to talk about BICS and KELP for a moment. When we talk about BICS, we're talking about basic English. It's playground lunch table language, otherwise known as levels 2 and 3. This is what students are going to frequently use and even frequently get stuck at. So what we're aiming for is KELP. And a lot of teachers will say, oh, he speaks English just fine. But a lot of that you're hearing is BICS. And we're interested in helping them achieve a standard of KELP. Your KELP is the cognitive thinking language, otherwise known as levels 4 and 5. And it's academic language proficiency. Okay, cognitive academic language proficiency. And then WIDA. WIDA is our test provider. It's a consortium of states, and if you click on this, you can see the map of member states. So you're aware, we are a part of WIDA. So this is what you'll see. This is an iceberg, of course, not a great drawing, but this is the language that, is very quick to accumulate and build. This is the harder, more difficult language to accumulate. And it does take 5 to 9 years to achieve that KELP, depending on the student. So BICS interpersonal communication skills include conversational conversational, social, everyday language. Fluency takes 1 to 3 years and often includes a silent period, and we'll talk about that in a moment too. And CALP, on the other hand, I'm sorry, it's easier to do it this way than to present, but cognitive academic language proficiency is the school and textbook academic language. It takes a minimum of 5 years to develop even an intermediate fluency. And like I said, a lot of students get stuck there at that intermediate fluency. And we'll talk about how we can promote further academic language here in a little bit. And honestly, I'm a Spanish language learner, and trust me, it takes a whole lifetime to develop fully your academic language in your second language. Other common acronyms, you might hear SIOP. It stands for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. You don't really need to know that. It's just using best strategies, which we'll get to. You'll hear about the access. That's the English test that they take. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. And then the WIDA, a consortium to which Minnesota schools and many other states, but not all, are accountable for academic language standards. So here's how we identify students. If they're coming from kindergarten, we identify them by their home language survey, now called the Minnesota Language Survey. And then they will take, if another language is on that language survey, then the student will take a screener with the teacher. They'll give them a screener, the kindergarten teachers do, the ESL teachers do. And then they have to be notified and they'll enter the program. And then there's exiting criteria to follow to exit. At the middle school, we don't do that because we don't have kindergartners, or the high school, of course, or a student that moves from another school, such as at the beginning of the year, like right now. We will look again at their Minnesota Language Survey to see if there's another language, or if they come from, say, an African nation that might have an English Creole. And then we will look through and see if they've taken a previous access test. And we're looking for an access test of 4.5 overall. There's other indicators that we have to look for, and then if they do have an access test, we'll use that. If not, then we have to give them the screener. And I forgot to mention that. But number 2, if they don't have an access test because they don't come from a WIDA state, such as Texas, California, a lot of heavy ESL states, then we will have to give them the WAPT screener, which is also part of WIDA, by the way. Yeah, so I'll fix that later. Anyway, on to who is an EL student. So students that are levels 1 through 4 are continued to be EL students. If they get a 5 or 6 on their test, they are automatically exited and monitored. So we do kind of keep them on our radar a little bit. Know that they have varied experiences with language, culture, and education. We saw Moises, and Moises is kind of the typical who we think of as an EL. Not entirely true at all. I've had EL students from all over the world. I've had I've had doctor's students, and I've had business professionals, children as EL students. So just know that they come from a variety of cultures, a variety of experiences, and a variety of education. Sometimes they can tell you what's what in math. So just know that they're not all what you think they are. And then we also listed a couple examples of, and I should mention, the other EL teachers, even though they aren't part of this presentation, helped me put together this whole presentation, and it was kind of a coordination of efforts. So anyway, we put together some examples for you to see, and actually if you go to this speaking example, you can pick out your own, what you want to look at.
Okay, Brian, tell me about your family.
It has some more examples on there for you.
Because
Just want to close that out so I know where where my next example is. So, and then the writing examples too, you can see different grade levels and different levels. And then there's the can-do descriptors. If you go to this website, I believe, let me know if it doesn't, you can email me, but it should come up with a list. So you can pick whatever grade you are. Honestly, this is like, I believe this one is like 5 or 6 pages. Being a classroom teacher in my past, I would probably want it all on 1 or 2 pages. So I'll just show you an example. You'll see listening, speaking, and oral language on 1 page, and then the different levels, and recount, explanation, arguments. It gives you some ideas. And then on the next page is the reading and writing. And again, you can pick your own grade level from that list. And then I just gave you another one that's kind of K through 12 to give you another idea, so you can take time to look at that on your own as well. And it's called the can-do descriptors because it's what students can do. So if you know that the student, and at the middle school, I give you access to their scores. So if you know their level, and you can probably ask the ESL teachers at the elementaries and the high school what level each student is. But if you know their level, you can see what they can do and what you can expect from them at that level. So the Access is the English test that they take once a year, usually in March. There are 4 different tests: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. It's a test of academic language in all content areas, but not comparable to the MCA, so you can't like transfer a 3 to what they might get on the MCAs at all. I wanted to say, a lot of our students that are not second language learners would struggle through this test. It is a very, very difficult English test. Too difficult, in my opinion. But anyway, scheduling can be a nightmare, so just be ready to be very flexible with us. We do our best to make sure that they're not missing, 4 days of your same class. We try to vary it up so that they're missing different classes different days, but it is 4 tests, and we have, at each building a number of EL students that we have to test. So just be ready to be flexible with us and with your students that miss your class. These are our access scores from last year. We had a number of level 1 students, a number of level 2 students, and a number of level 5 students, but really where we sit and get stuck, students get stuck come middle school, high school. Very few students exit out if they haven't already exited out. They get stuck in those levels 3 and 4. So that's really, really where you want to aim, is levels 3 and 4. So that's kind of the suggestions that we give you in the following slides. So classroom supports, and these are obvious. You've probably heard these 100 times, but I just am going to put them out there anyway, and then there's additional supports to follow. We are very helpful. You can ask us, and we are glad to help. So contact us if you're struggling. In addition, hands-on is always really good for EL students because it doesn't require as much language. Graphic supports, visuals, and interactive supports. So put them in pairs. Let them use their first language. That video kind of made it sound like otherwise, but that was years ago and something that we do not practice at all at Inver Grove Heights. Let them use their first language. If you speak their first language, you'll connect with them if you use their first language too. But as for working, I like to, when I'm in the co-taught room, I like to group them with students that speak their language. So that they can translanguage. They can use their Spanish if they need to, and it might be Spanglish. They might start mixing in English. This is good for them. The better that first language is, the better that second language can be. So wherever their first language is, it's always gonna limit their second language. So we want to support that first language as well, and that's easy to do in cooperative groups. I know with distance learning that becomes difficult, and even with social distancing that becomes difficult, but when you can. vocab and language supports. When you're looking at a text, and I have an example here, pick out words that you think they're going to struggle with right away. So I'm like, okay, they're definitely going to stop here if they're not a Spanish speaker. But then I see that it's explained here further. So that's not going to be a word that I pick out. I think they're probably going to deal with enslaved and wonder what that is. And then I can have a conversation. What word do you see in there? I see slave. Okay, enslaved means being in slavery. Indigenous might be another word. And I'm gonna pull them out. I'm gonna write them on the side, and then I'm gonna talk about them. What do you think it is? What do you think it means? And so pull out 5 to 7. Don't pull out, every word there, especially if you have a level 1 student. That's pointless. But pick out the academic language. Also, don't just pull out those tier 3 words, which are appropriate to your content, but pick out those tier 2 words as well. Migrate. What does it mean to migrate? Because that's a tier 2 word that can be used in all content areas. Tier 2 words are words that can be used in all academic language contents. Okay, whereas tier 3 are words that apply to the subject that you're talking about right now. Tier 3 words are good, but tier 2 words are the best because they carry over into all subject areas. So remember to pull out tier 2 words especially. And they'll probably ask what the tier 3 words are without even having to pull them out, actually. Give sentence starters for small group discussions or writing activities. So I gave you an example here of sentence starters. But essentially, if you ask a question, put it into an answer to give them a sentence starter and write it up on the board. Just to get them going, give them a little momentum to get started. Anytime in the co-taught classroom, anytime the English teacher will ask a question, I'll start to answer the question up on the board for them. So I'm giving them a sentence starter to start with. This is a good activity to get used to doing. Because again, it's helpful for all students as well, using that academic language and using complete sentences instead of just answering the question. So how do you pull the language out of your content? I just like this graphic. It helps visualize what you can do, how you can start. So how can I make grade level content comprehensible for my ELs? Well, I have to create or give them the language to express or communicate their answers. What kind of language do they need to answer the questions? What kind of language do they need to communicate the answers? So what can he do? And that's where your can do descriptors come in, back here or back here. What can the student do? And how can I help him or her show her learning? In other words, pull the language out. What kind of language will they need to communicate? So here's some just general English language strategies. And some of them are very obvious. I do not mean to condescend at all, but I like to be clear. Speak clearly and in standard English. So try not to shorten your words. Try to speak a little bit slower. Pause a lot. Position yourself so that the ESL student can see your face when you are speaking, because that nonverbal communication is so important. And in fact, with the masks, we're suggesting if you have a face shield to use it, because that nonverbal communication is so important that we use in our face. Be as visual as possible. Assign a buddy to your ESL students. Sometimes, not always, especially with level 1 students, assigning them different buddies, because they become very dependent on their buddies, and sometimes it'll pull their buddies down because their buddies are so busy helping them. So go ahead and assign them someone to sit with, but then change that person out frequently so that the other student doesn't fall behind as well. But translanguaging is very useful for those 1s and 2s. And we forget about those 2s. They're still very new to English. They have a lot of Bics, so they don't sound like it so much, but allow them to translanguage, meaning allow them to use their first language and mix it up with buddies. And learn their name. Ask them how they pronounce their name. Ask them what they want to be called. This is just, general connection, and I realize you probably already know this. Number 7, comprehension precedes production. Okay, so even though they might not be talking yet, they are taking in a lot of information. So you've heard of the silent period maybe. A lot of 1s and 2s will go through a silent period where they're absorbing the language. So respect that, honor that quiet period, that silent period. And figure out other ways that they can communicate and show you. So maybe they can draw, or maybe they can use multiple choice, or give them a word bank. Whatever you need to do to provide them with the language that they need to communicate, or have them use visuals. If they can say it, they can write it. So challenge them to write it as well as say it. And FYI, speaking louder does not aid in comprehension. So if they didn't get it the first time, try rephrasing it, try using more pauses, slow down, try to visualize it, try to restate it try to paraphrase it in different words. Number 10, create certain predictable routines in your class. For example, always have homework in the same spot every day on your board. And if it's in your presentation slides, have it look the same all the time so they know how to find the homework. So as much routine as you can create in your slides or in your presentations or on your board, the better, because they will get more comfortable the more comfortable they are with your routines. Where they're from, talk about where they're from, ask about where they're from, whatever you know about where they're from, make conversation with them about where they're from. It really shows them that you're interested in them. And then when you're selecting reading assignments, keep their ability in mind. Shoot, I forgot the source, but so there's Newsella, and you've probably seen it before, but there's also, and I'll try to put it in here later in the slide, but if you log in with your Google, it should work. Unless it's your first time, then you might have to fill out. But with Newsella, you can pick different text abilities. Oh, it's readability, I think. I think it's called readability. You can pick any text and have it form it into a more readable text. And I'll put a link on that here in a moment. So anyway, you can select a text, for example, and then over here you can change the lexicon level depending on the student. So the student can do that themselves too, by the way, to make it a more simplistic reading, and they still get the idea out of it. And then of course, a smile is international. If you're stressed out with a student, especially a newcomer, because it can be really difficult to communicate with them, just know that a smile is international. Don't let them see that you're frustrated, because they internalize it, of course. They think it's because they're dumb. And just keep on keeping on. So 5 things just for simple improvement: increase your production, increase the students' language production, and use peer interaction. Explicitly teach that vocabulary like we talked about. Build on what students already know. If they don't already know, make sure that they have a video or something that they can access to build on their knowledge. Increasing parent involvement. Use texting with parents if you can. Google Voice or talking points to text in their language, but use as much parent involvement as possible. It's a good way, we notice with distance learning, just giving parents feedback that, Luis did really, or Moises did fantastic in math today. He really struggled, but he made it through, or whatever. Sharing that information will motivate Moises, because Moises will hear back from mom and dad what you said. So use that parent involvement as much as possible because it reinforces them. And increase their writing opportunities as well as speaking opportunities, because that allows them to use what language they do have. And then just one more slide of help when ELs don't understand the text, things to do when they struggle to understand abstract concepts. And you have access to this slide, so I'm not going to read through it because this is getting long, and I apologize for that. But family communication. For family communication, if you need to call home, again, Abby Lisinski, if in Spanish. If not in Spanish, use language line. We do schedule interpreters once in a while. One for conferences, we definitely schedule interpreters. And then other times, if necessary, if you have to have a, an IEP or whatever you might need for need an interpreter for, just know what language the student speaks, so what kind of language the interpreter will need, where this is going to happen, when and how, and then contact Abby, and Abby creates or will connect with the interpreters that we need. Again, we do use interpreters for conferences. We've used interpreters for back to school night. They can be very helpful. And let us know if you have questions, honestly, and I'm going to put my email address up here in the contacts. Please contact me if you have questions, and I can get you to the your ESL teacher as well if you don't know their contact information. And honestly, I just really hope you have a fantastic year, and welcome to Inver Grove Heights. Bye, guys.